Hey there, holes, poles, everybody in between. Thank you for checking out the podcast. Come With Us podcast, of course. We have quite a show in store for you today. Ryan McCrobie, he is the host of the All Lubed Up and Nowhere to Go podcast. He also works with System Joe Lubricants, a dude who's been in the market or been in the adult toy space for years, over a decade. So he's got plenty of knowledge that we're going to pick his brain on. So stay tuned for that. But want to give a shout out to our friends at Manscaped for sponsoring the podcast, for not only being a great partner, but making great products. The Lawnmower 4.0 is out now. It works great. I use it twice a week, once a week, just depending on how things are growing down there. The blades are extremely sharp. They are, it's got the little guard on there to make sure you're not nicking yourself down there or anything like that. And it's also got a light, because when you're down there on your balls or down there on your pussy or whatever, you need some light down there, and it's got a spotlight so you can see what you're doing. So get to manscaped.com, check it out, use our promo code, Come With Us. That's going to get you 20% off. It's going to get you free shipping. Also, they've got the Weed Whacker, which trims your nose hair, your ear hair. It's a big problem for guys. Apparently, it's also a problem for women, too, according to Beth. Something I didn't know about either. But yeah, the Weed Whacker is great for your nose hair. It helps to reduce the risk of like ingrown hairs. I've had crappy ones in the past that do not do that. So go check out manscaped.com, promo code Come With Us. You get 20% off. You get free shipping. They've got the ball deodorant. They've got everything there that you need to keep all your goods down below nice and cleaned up and fresh, because when you want to have fresh stuff, just in case you ever have company showing up. So stay tuned. We're going to talk with Ryan McCrobie, and yeah, go to manscaped.com, use promo code Come With Us.
Are you saying you faked with me?
Yeah.
Wrong. Now you're single.
What do you know about sexual relations?
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
I'm a little worried about being a slut.
You're listening to the Come With Us podcast, talking the good, the kinky, and the ugly. Here are your hosts, Beth, Aaron, and Tina.
Hello, 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 all you sexy holes and poles. Welcome to Come With Us podcast, where you're part of all the naughty, sexy fun, all the conversations that everybody wants to listen in on. Today, we are talking about how to get wet. Oh, so juicy, juicy wet. And frankly, sometimes with some peppermint or eucalyptus or coconut, lime, all these, so many different ways. Get wet, get slick, get moist, juicy, whatever those words are. All those words that make Aaron just grimace.
I mean, just how many people just like shuddered at the word moist? I mean, our male listeners think it's funny. Our female listeners are like, oh, I hate that word moist.
I know. That's why
my pants actually say moist on the back of them. So.
Ooh, that's hot. All right. Well, good. Well, I'm Beth Darling, your sexy genius here from sexyedschool.com. I'm here obviously with Aaron and Tina and our special guest, Ryan McCrobie, who is a sexpert for years and years, host of All Lubed Up podcast, an amazing podcast show specializing in the sex industry stuff and for people. And he knows all about lubes. And well, that's going to be our focus this episode. Next episode, we'll be talking about other sexy props. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been half of my life in the adult industry, and most of it's been in lube. I've been doing retail. I've worked for a manufacturer of lubricants for almost 9 years now, and I've been doing marketing, product development. I've actually been able to bring a Class 2 medical device to market. So it's a fascinating subject, and I'm really excited to talk to everybody about it.
I love it. And let's give a shout out, because the company that you're working for right now, the manufacturer is?
Well, you would see them on a 510K licensing listing as CC Wellness. That is the major manufacturer, but the brand that everybody knows is the good old JO, System Joe. It is a system of intimate products made for the average Joe. We dropped the E to make it very unisex. We really want to make sure that we've got something for everybody. And we do literally something for everything. For every act, every person, every sensitivity. We work with about 8 different preservative blends. We've got, a wide range of different glides. We were one of the first manufacturers ever to get into a USDA certified water-based, which is a really cool story if anybody wants to talk about it.
Okay, there's so much about this that I am already a little confused. You started with like 510 something licensing, which I think
Okay,
is about
so
FDA licensing.
the lifespan of a lubricant, because
Mhm.
it's a class 2 medical device. And let me just back this up a second so that people know why it's class 2. It's because it has interactions with condoms, and it is medically originally designed to reduce the risk of tears and improve the function of general condoms that we'd wear as a contraceptive or as a barrier for STDs or STIs. So because of that interaction with a current medical device, bam, personal lubricants are a medical device. They require regulation and approval through the FDA. There's a few other things that happens, but basically, if tomorrow, you wanted to make a lube, the first thing you would have to do is you would have to find substantial equivalence with a current licensed and approved medical device that's on the market now. So that allows the medical boards to know that basically whatever you're bringing to the table is so similar to something else that's been licensed and been tested that it's a low risk factor. So that'd be the first step. And then after that, there's a lot of testing that goes into lubricants. And this is something that I talk about a lot because there's a mindset with general consumers that lubricant's a novelty product. Growing up in the industry, we see a lot of kind of silly yet on point things. We see a lot of brands that kind of make it seem like it's, fuck water or something like this.
Yeah. So
I've never heard it
actually,
called fuck water. That's
Fuck.
interesting.
There's one born every day.
so
Wow.
okay, let's start though with some people don't even know what personal lubes are. And I know
So
I
a
had
personal
60-year-old
lubricant.
women who came in and had no idea what lube was. And I was like, well, isn't sex painful? And she was like, of course. And I said, does your husband know? And she's like, I don't know. And that's a problem, right? That people do think lube is something that's maybe not for everyone. And I just want to put out there that lube is for everyone. It's even young people, if they're on certain medications, if they're on birth control, they might not get naturally as wet as they would like to. If you're perimenopausal, menopausal, anything, different times in your cycle, even without any other influence. Women might be sexually aroused and still not be juicy wet down below.
Absolutely. And let me put something else into context that kind of
Yeah.
broadens the conversation that you just had. So many consumers buy general over-the-counter prescription or sinus products, and there really is no medical indication on the back of the packaging that this product will dry your mucous membranes. And, if we think about what the vaginal cavity is, it's basically just this giant mucous membrane that really will get dried out from antihistamines and other things that you're taking that are just general over the counter. So not only is it our antidepressants, not only is it a lot of prescription products.
I have this. I heard this before, where if you're taking Mucinex, it's easier for you to get pregnant. I literally told this to them the other day because I was like, because it was something about your mucous membrane and like mucinose and all that kind of stuff. Weird. So
I could
because I get a ton of
see-
sinus infections.
Yeah. And that's the most common reason where a lot of people are seeing a dryness throughout
Yeah.
their system. And they're not even told by the medical community. They're not told by the packaging that they're going to buy because it's still so taboo to talk about vaginal dryness or to talk about these things. But really, a personal lubricant only exists to make sure that we're really reducing micro tears on insertion or penetration. That is absolutely critical. So even if sex gets comfortable afterwards, it's that initial jump into intimacy that can be quite a shock to the system. It can lead to a lot of discomfort. And when we get micro tears, we increase our own susceptibility to bacterial infections and other things depending on our own unique body and how we're able to maintain a very good bacteria and fight off the bad bacteria in our system.
And more than that, we also, if our body is exposed to any sort of pain or irritation from a particular act, it has like this muscle memory, and it's not going to look forward to that action. I say, we don't think, oh, don't touch the stove. We did it once as a kid, and we never think about it. It just happens. So when women are going through painful intercourse, even if it's tiny bits of pain, their body is learning to not look forward to sexy stuff. And that's not a good thing for anybody.
I would agree with you there. It is very much an overtime subliminal connection that makes it just not a fun act anymore. And, lubricants are made in so many different styles. So you could get something that's a very light liquid that pours more like water or like a maple syrup. It's got a lighter viscosity. This is kind of what people consider to be the classic water-based. It's not too thick. It's not too thin. That's just what it is. But there's also a lot of specialty products where we're thickening them to be an ever wet gel, a big thick pillow of lube, or we've got jellies, which are designed to more bridge throughout the vaginal cavity so that you have more cushion, more comfort. And really the lubricant is spreading and going to those places that do not have lube. So everything that it touches gets lubricated.
Okay, so we should talk about the different categories just to break them down. So the water-based lubes, and I say our bodies are designed to absorb moisture, so they get absorbed by the body quicker. So to me, as a menopausal woman, a water-based lube, I'm going to have to reapply, because it's just not going to last if you're talking about more than just a couple of minutes of fucking or penetration.
Yeah.
Or
I do just
of
want to
anything.
say one thing while we're on the topic, because
Yeah,
this
please.
is kind of a common misconception. The lubricant that you actually put into your body is not designed to actually absorb and get into your cellular structure. Most of what happens here is going to be evaporation through friction. And that's a lot of things like thickeners. If you're using hydroxyethyl cellulose or some sort of cellulose gum, those types of ingredients are not actually absorbed into the body. So that's where we get water bases that reactivate with self-lubrication, added moisture, sweat, anything like that. So if any men out there that might be listening have used sort of a water-based as a masturbatory lubricant, what you'll notice, the palm of your hand, because it sweats so much, it will reactivate that glide. If you get a good water-based, you can get some amazing longevity out of it, depending on your use. But that's where we have so many different categories. So your water-based is the king of everything because it wins on compatibility. It wins on cost. It's usually a very cost-effective product. And it's definitely something that you can very liberally apply without worrying about staining your sheets or slipping on the floor or something like that. So water-based is really kind of where it all starts. But I do run into a lot of consumers that have a hard time finding a water-based. We do have to kind of take a look at all the different categories because everybody is so unique. You really want to be able to dial into that product that's really perfect for you. So beyond water bases, a lot of people talk about a silicone-based product. Silicones are basically synthetic oils that have been made to extremely long-lasting specifications. And you'll see different tiers of this. So you'll have some siloxane strands that are going to act differently than other silicone strands. For instance,
how are they going to act differently?
Well, siloxanes are more cosmetic in use because what they were originally designed for was to have a dry application. So you put this product on your skin, you rub it in, and this synthetic silicone is basically treated so that it will evaporate and it has a much lighter texture than some of the higher end, more pharmaceutical or medical grade silicones like dimethicone, dimethiconyl.
Okay.
So did you end up with like a degree in chemistry or did you learn this all as you went? Because there's a lot of fancy words. Like I failed chemistry 3 times.
I had a very good career in retail, and I had some amazing trainers that really taught me from their perspective the importance and the power of good personal lubricants. And from there, I got picked up to work with a manufacturer, and I've always been a look under the hood kind of person, because when I was first in lubricants, I realized as I'm looking at a lot of different labels, I couldn't originally understand what was different between A and B. I had to go a step further. I had to think about what's so different from this. So I started learning about, naturally sourced, synthetic source. We started digging past everything. And I mean, it's been a long career, so I wouldn't expect everybody to have this kind of information. But it's something that's a passion of mine, because there is a lot of misunderstandings in the lubricant space. There's still a lot of shame that kind of goes into the conversation. As a man, nobody ever questioned if I were to pick up a personal lubricant. That's just great. But I see a lot of women that are very maybe self-conscious, or very feeling at the center of everyone's eyes when they pick up this product and go to the cash wrap or something like that. And it's something that I've always wanted to end, because it's a tool. It's something that is designed for you. It's designed for your pleasure. It's designed to increase everything that you have access to in your life. And I've even seen some mechanics pull things off their car with a little bit of silicone lube. So you can do pretty much anything with it, even in a jam.
I say men can put silicone lube on their nipples if they're running marathons, and it stops their nipples from bleeding and chafing, which is good.
Yeah, and that's a lot easier to deal with than, like, I know marathon runners who put Band-Aids on there, and if you have a hairy chest, it's coming off and the hair's going with it. No.
Yeah, it's painful.
Nope, I'm against that.
There also are some communities where the idea of using lube is deemed, quote, cheating, which I think is a little bit crazy. And again, I think it's important that everybody understand that just because we are sexually aroused and we're turned on and we want to be with a person, our body may not be able to get wet, to provide enough lubrication to make any sort of sexy stuff fun. And I say it's the same way. Sometimes we're really thirsty, and no matter what you do, your mouth is dry. That doesn't mean we're not thrilled to be talking to somebody. So
You're
heads up,
absolutely correct.
let's try and
there.
make this. Yeah. So we want to encourage everybody to have lube. Oh, and especially honeymooners. Take it, be like, yes, we got 4 bottles of lube. This is going to be a great honeymoon or vacation.
And for me, I'm looking at giving people the idea of not one lube for all jobs, because when we're talking about something like erotic massage, or we're talking about a longer, more intense experience, we might gravitate towards more a silicone-based product, something with more longevity, something that's going to lock the moisture into our skin, something that's going to leave us feeling hydrated, very touchable. If you did the same thing with a water-based, you would constantly have to maintain that glide with like a spray bottle, or dipping your hands in a bowl of water in order to reactivate those thickeners and that glide, which is where we see, if anybody's familiar with Nuru massage, a lot of water-based, very erotic on contact massage. The idea of it is that you're using the soft parts of your body to massage the hard points of your partner's body. So breasts massage face, buttocks massage back, anything like that. It is
that's
a
the
fun thing.
That's designed for whole body,
Whole body.
basically slip and slide on each other.
Yeah. And these are traditionally very heavy in carrageenan as far as thickeners. And if anybody's ever seen a very heavily thickened product with carrageenan, you'll know it strings. It's a little weird the first time you do it, because it's meant to really bind and connect and really be there for all those touch points.
Okay. So I want to talk more about the different kinds, but let's cover the basics, which is hybrid. And I have one of yours here. So can you tell us what?
Yeah, the
hybrid.
idea of a hybrid was to come to market with a product that would be more compatible with toys, because obviously, if you've been in the adult industry, if you've been to an adult store for any amount of time, the chemical idea of like dissolves like. If I'm using a silicone lubricant on a silicone toy, depending on the grade of the silicone, there is a chance that actually breaks down your material over time. So what we went to the drawing board for was
So nice.
to make a water-based solution that was enhanced with a secondary component. And in this case, the classic hybrid, this is the best of both worlds. It's a water-based fused with a little bit of silicone, so that as the water evaporates, you actually have this really thin, really light, very silky glide. So think of a product that's really designed and focused on the finish. And what's nice about the classic hybrid is it starts out like kind of a gel, so it's easier to apply. It's a little bit thick, but as you pet it onto the body, as you rub it in, it just melts into a really light, delicate liquid, and it's very easy to work with. Classic hybrid is really popular for a lot of men's categories because it really has a nice finish, and the longevity there on top of a water-based, it gives a lot of consumers the idea of, well, I can simply upgrade my water-based experience to something a bit new. And for people with very particular sensitivities, our entire hybrid line was originally designed to be paraben and glycerin free, because we had a lot of consumers that were talking about these ingredients, and they were looking for something compatible. In our classic hybrid line, we use mostly propylene glycol as a replacement.
Okay. So I just put it on my hand, the hybrid, and it's kind of nice because my skin is so dry lately, and it's just left it a little bit smooth. It's really kind of nice, actually.
Yeah.
Not sticky like a hand.
Yeah. And luckily, so Ryan, you're talking and you sent us like a goodie bag of every type of lube that is under the sun that System Joe makes. And so we're sitting here and we've got them all open and we're sitting there playing with all of them. Like they're both playing with the hybrid one. I'm sitting here messing with this one that's coconut. What was it? The coconut oil. So it's water.
I've got a
and
great
coconut.
story about that if you'd like to hear it.
It smells so
Yeah,
good.
and it smells awesome.
Yeah, but wait,
It smells like summertime.
Go ahead.
So that one makes me think of sunblock, which the
Yeah.
beach. But that's a massage oil rather than a lube, right?
The coconut hybrid is absolutely licensed as a personal lubricant. It's been through penile and vaginal sensitivity. It's been through cytotoxicity, systemic toxicity. It's had preservative and packaging stability. You name it, it's been tested. And here's something really interesting while we're on the subject. Most consumers come to our coconut hybrid and they think this is a water-based with oil in it. I can't use this on condoms because oil is going to break down my latex. It might be problematic for my synthetic latex like polyisoprene, but we actually did the testing on this product. And one of the things you'll notice if you look at the bottle and you look underneath the indications and directions on the back, you will see the condom compatibility printed on the label. This is a product that is compatible with latex condoms. It is a product. I believe it's only not compatible with polyurethane, which is a very thin plastic sheeting, much like a bag from the supermarket.
Yeah.
Not my favorite type of material. No stretch, no give, but great heat transference. So if you're looking for a more snugger fit, that's a great condom to take a look at.
Wow. Okay. So I want to highlight that you said oil-based lubes, not compatible with condoms generally.
Generally,
Important
if
to
it's a
note.
pure oil-based product, yes, it can break down a lot of different materials. You wouldn't use an oil-based product with a lot of your TPRs or thermoplastic rubbers because there is actually an oil infusion in that product. If you've ever left a fleshlight on a piece of paper, you'll actually see those oils leach into the paper. And
Did
you
not
want
know
to
that.
stop the product from basically breaking down over time, which means you're packing it in cornstarch and you're kind of locking that product from leaching out any of those materials.
Okay. So people know that you do need to think about what lube you're using, where you're using it, on who you're using it in terms of their personal sensitivities, and with what products, condoms, passion props, whatever. So
Yeah, these are all very important. And you know, one of the first things that people can consider when they're making the decision as far as what lubricant is right for me, A lot of people will know their body and know their history. If you have a history of having a very sensitive system that has bacterial infections rather easily, you might be the kind of person that really needs a pH balanced formulation. We do a ton of products that are more in line for a healthy vaginal environment. Let me break that down. I'm
Okay, and I
talking
will,
about.
if
Mhm.
I can interrupt you for a
Yeah.
second, because I am not someone who generally has a lot of UTIs or yeast infections. But for a while, coconut oil, people were like, "Oh, just buy a thing of coconut oil for the kitchen and use it." If I do that for more than like once in a week, I will get an infection. And I understand that's because of the pH.
Um, the FDA has actually been trying to get people to stop using regular coconut oil quite often. There's not a lot of, to my knowledge, purity standards when you're talking about something like this that is food grade. So
Well,
we wanted
and
to
if
work
it's
with
natural,
coconut
it
oil,
has a different pH than our body does.
but it would be different from every single batch. So for you
Oh,
as a
true.
consumer to try and identify what that is, like when we're
Good point.
manufacturing lubricants in our R&D department, everything has to be, there's so many checks and balances. First they make it, and then somebody else comes and says, I'm going to check what you made and make sure that it fits specifications. And then if that happens, it goes into quarantine. And then after it sits in quarantine for about a week or 2 weeks, it goes through another test to make sure, is this again what we said we were going to make? Is there
Oh,
any problems with the preservative? Is this holding a biostatic solution? Okay, then it's okay to go out, and we basically keep a master lot of that batch in house. So if we ever have any comments about that lot number, we can take a look at it in house and compare it to whatever a consumer is saying. There is
good.
really something to be said about keeping lube bottles clean. If I tell anybody anything, you would be surprised in my time in lube, how many times it becomes maybe a little bit evident that the bottle has not been taken care of, and therefore the liquid inside could possibly be compromised based on how it was cared for and handled.
What would be a bad way? Like, is it okay to keep it in the bathroom where it might
Oh,
get steamy
yeah.
or
It's perfectly okay to keep it in the bathroom. We're talking about lubricant bottles that are kind of left forgotten to time. They get other contaminants on top of them. Sometimes there are aerosols involved. Sometimes there are, fragrances that basically get into the bottle and other things like that.
okay.
So you want to make sure that wherever you're storing your personal lubricants, it's just kind of an enclosed or clean space. And if you do
Okay.
that,
Is there
you're
any
fine.
problem leaving them in a hot car? We're in Houston.
If you'll notice on all of our packages, we have this little sun over a roof that depicts to keep your products out of direct sun, because
Oh,
it will actually warp a lot of different materials inside of it. Coming from an Arizona boy, you could easily get temperatures of 130 inside of a car. And the
yeah.
other thing to take note of, we actually give you a storage range. There's a thermometer right here, and it will
Oh,
tell you an ideal
that's a line.
storage rate as far as temperature, where to keep your product. Because we're
Oh,
very
cool.
ISO in that manner. We want to give people as much information as we can on the package. And
Okay.
just to kind of
ISO
go through that,
is industrial standards.
it's an international standards of like
International standards.
operating procedures, and there
Okay.
are specific classes of ISO that are designed for medical devices, and we very
Okay.
much
To make
follow
sure that you
those.
do the same thing over and over and everything is correct. And that's important. Yeah.
Close to make sure that you're following procedures, but that you are in line with a product that evolves, improves, and a process that updates over time. So it's not that I'm doing the same thing, it's that I'm doing what I said I would do, but I'm always looking for improvements. I'm
Oh,
documenting those improvements, and I'm changing. So if I go through an FDA audit, they want to know all of our data that we've been collecting from consumers. They want to make sure all of our batch records are correct, and that the actual procedure is is good. As far as an ISO audit, they're really looking at the organizational or structural health. They're looking at how things are implemented. They're looking at job descriptions of particular areas within the manufacturing facility to make sure that everybody's very clear on how they work within the facility and how they can implement suggestions, do better, anything.
So, do all lubes abide by these kinds of standards? No.
Okay, let me break this down a little bit. We live in a world where personal lubricants, from our perspective in the United States, have to go through this FDA channel. They have to meet pre-market submission requirements. Not every lubricant that a consumer will buy is officially licensed with a 510K. You may not know if your lubricant has gone through specific testing. It may not have been tested. But on top of that, even if you have a manufacturer that is manufacturing out of an FDA approved facility, so they've got the license in order to manufacture medical devices, and they're making them, it does not mean that they adhere to any other standard operating procedures. It's not a requirement.
Interesting. There's so many hoops to jump through in it. And I'm glad that they're there.
They are.
A lot of times, you hear, I hear about something, I'm like, God, stop regulating so much stuff. All you're doing is making people's jobs harder and you're wasting tax dollars. But something like this, because it's an actual,
It's going
people's
into our
genitals
body.
is something you want to take care of, period, the end. So this is one of the times where I'm like, no, I'd like to know that there are watchdogs that kind of look over the shoulder of people who say they are doing this and selling things that, might go and, hurt my junk or my wife's or anything like that.
And although it is class 2, it's not class 3, because it's class 3 would be like your pacemakers and things that are actually put in your body. Sometimes they have software and other things, so they really can cause death or serious injury. That's why they're class 3. But lubricants being class 2 is still can still be pretty detrimental to people when they do have an adverse reaction. And that's the one biggest thing for consumers out there. If you're supporting manufacturers that are really licensed as best they can, and they're really doing a lot of great research and development, the thing that is very lacking in our world is actual clinical, sexual, or sensual studies. The World Health Organization does a whole lube category conversation. I believe it happens every 2 or 4 years. But they're really looking at things from a different perspective. They want to look at, if people aren't buying lubricants because it's not available in their region, what are they using? Are they using egg whites? How effective is that? And there's just a different lens to it. Whereas the manufacturing data that somebody acquires through being ISO and FDA compliant is actually very substantial, because the FDA basically requires that you're really connecting with any consumer that has an adverse reaction. You're asking follow-up questions, you're gathering contact information. And for us as a manufacturer over the last 22 years, it's been so informative on what we can do with our formulations to make it better for the consumers. We've had 3 or 4 major changes that have really brought to market a better product through consumer feedback. So I do want to really highlight that. If you're the type of person that doesn't normally complain or doesn't normally share your side, I would encourage you, because it really goes a far, far way to changing the quality of goods that you'll see on your store shelves.
Okay, so I would say to our listeners, if they've got feedback or anything, Ryan, how can they contact you? Or
well,
certainly they
it's
can
not
follow
me,
us.
but if you take a look on
Mhm.
any bottle right by the UPC, they're going to have feedback at systemjoe.com, and they're going to have our website. One of the things that we do to have a system that functions well for our ISO and FDA compliance, we created a pleasure guarantee. It used to be a satisfaction guarantee, but we want really to associate the word pleasure with these products, because it's
like
not,
that.
were you satisfied about this lubricant? It's more than that. Is this igniting your passion? Is this,
Yes.
is this fixing things for you and your partner? Is this making a better, passionate future for you? And so if you were a consumer that went to a store and you picked up a product, and for whatever reason, if the viscosity wasn't right for you, if you just didn't like the smell of it, the taste of it, whatever it is, we just want to hear that feedback. And as the manufacturer, we don't want you to have to go to the adult store and get a refund, because they're not going to give it to you. There are no refunds at many adult stores unless you're like an A-tier client that somebody really knows, and they're like, let me take care of that for you.
To be fair, that's what I was at Darling Way.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, you really should be there to back the products, but we created the whole system because we knew that adult stores had this no refund policy, and we were really not getting any information flowing back to the manufacturing facility. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to get a full refund or a free replacement or multiple replacements. It's so much value to us that we don't just sell you a product and send you on your way. We want you to find the right product. And especially with personal lubricants, it can be really hard if you put money into something and you feel like it just did the opposite of what you wanted it to do. And again, it kind of goes to your earlier conversation of this, this mental thought that's built where it's like, oh, that's not worth my time. It's not good for me. My body just doesn't like that. And we want to give people the opportunity to kind of play on our dollar and find that perfect fit. Because we have a lot, we manufacture with basically every humectant and moisturizer you can think of. And there are a lot of little small micro changes that you can make from one purchasing decision to another.
And I really appreciate that. I think that is a good sign when a company is literally willing to stand behind their product as opposed to just make a quick buck and then move on to the next fool, right? And I suggest that people, if you're very new to lubes or you don't have a lot of experience in terms of what your body or your partner's body is going to respond to, there are these little foil packages. They call them pillow packs with all sorts of different kinds, flavors, scents of lubes and glides and things. Yes.
This
Perfect.
is one of the foil samples that you might see in store. We just started. Our freebie samples are a 5 milliliter size. Our buy and take for travel are 10 milliliters. So you actually get more than one good use in this, or a very heavy-handed experience. Because we found for a lot of people, how much water-based do I use? It's actually a question. Some people will say, oh, it's between a dime and a nickel. Some people will say it's between $1.50 and $1.50. Some people will just say, pour it until there's nothing left in the bottle, and we're just going to have a great time. It happens. But everybody has their own style for what feels right, what feels like enough.
And I would say if you've had an experience where you've tried lube and it didn't work, i.e., it was still painful or it was sticky or yucky, then try different lubes.
So one of the things that you can do really easily, if you started with a water-based formulation, you can, and I highly recommend, if you are of a sensitive body type, please go to your dollar store, get a little journal, get a little notepad, just make notes on the products that you're using. And if you can take a picture of the ingredients, it will help you so much in life, because you just never know. Sometimes you may want to return to something you used earlier. Sometimes you want to avoid something. Sometimes you need to use 2 or 3 products to really figure out maybe what is bothering you about the formulation. Do I need something that's more pH balanced? Do I need a different preservative? Do I need a different primary glide ingredient? It's not very clear for a lot of people, maybe what the issue would be.
Right. Which I would say also is another reason for finding a good shop with knowledgeable people that you can talk to and you can ask and you can get really good qualified feedback. Because otherwise, if you just go on Amazon, there's 3 zillion kinds of lubes.
Are you on Amazon?
We have a brand that's on Amazon. As a premier manufacturer, we have a major private label unit. So because we've been investing over time in these 510K licenses, we're up to about 24 licensed Class 2 medical devices that are all completely unique. This isn't just a 4 ounce and an 8 ounce of the same product. These are specifically unique formulations. We have a lot of people that will come to us. The Amazon for us was more to control the message and control a bit more of the chaos that happens on Amazon. We want to make sure
the resale and stuff.
yeah, we really had to get involved because it was becoming very detrimental to our brick and mortar partners. The race to the bottom dollar, it doesn't help anybody. It just doesn't help because the manufacturer still needs money for R&D. There's still a lot of stuff. What many consumers do not know is that a 510K license just to bring something to market can be upwards to $200,000. So it's a huge expense. Even on the light side, probably about 50,000. So it's a huge expense, and it's really something that we have to consider. This is where some of the fun, some of our money, we're voting with our dollar, and we want more of this to happen in the world. That's kind of the way that I think about it. But if anybody wants to check out Lube Life, it's a great product, and it's really a nice value option. For me, System Joe has the most diversity in the line because you won't see a lot of products. You'll see more of the basic or beginners in some of these lines, but you'll miss out on Agape.
If people want to buy a product, where would you recommend them and they go?
Honestly, I recommend people to go to an adult store. That's where I started out. If you have a well-trained staff nearby, that's probably the place where you're going to be able to feel, touch, see, get very involved in that purchasing decision. If you're buying online, you can get some information, but you might find your expectations change once the bottle arrives. It's kind of you never know until it shows up. So I always welcome people to head to an adult store because not only are you usually going to get a more premium selection, so you won't find KY and Astroglide dominating these product listings, you'll find more premier, smaller manufacturers that are making just killer products. So that's
Because
really a place where I go.
There's a huge difference in the quality of lubes. Even some of these big names that spend a lot of money advertising, those are lubes I would not use at all for my body. I wouldn't recommend them to anybody. It's not worth it.
I went to CVS when I first started my product development role, and I wanted to really take a look at what mass market was doing because it's not where I would shop for my lube. I go adult stores all day, every day, or a nice e-commerce website that gives me the information that I need. CVS's health line is like their private label. And I remember I walked up and I picked up this water-based from CVS Health, and I looked at the ingredients, and it did not contain water. It was a water-based lubricant that did not contain water. I was like blown away. I was like, it just didn't make sense to my brain.
Yeah. And there are a couple of things. You mentioned that your products don't contain the parabens and what was the other one?
So let me pause because methyl and propylparaben, keep in mind, the paraben conversation has been going on for maybe 20 or 30 years now, as far as identifying consumer sensitivities with it. It's been something we've always been talking about in our industry. But I think what some consumers don't understand about the conversation is when we look at parabens, it's not just 2 types of parabens, it's 4 types. So you've got methyl, propyl, butyl, and ethyl. And the butyl and ethyl components are the ones that are the most estrogenic in those formats as far
And
as
what does that mean?
preservative. It is how it interacts. Parabens, this is why some people are not into parabens in a product, because technically it's an estrogenic component.
Which means there's concern that it's linked to ranks to cancer
There were
incidences.
concerns. Yes, there were some studies back in the day that basically found the contents of parabens inside of a tumor or an enlarged cell that was benign at the time. The problem is that when they did that data dive and that discovery came out through the medical dossier, it was that they didn't take a look at the composition of healthy cells. So we didn't have any comparisons to make a full conversation from it, but it was enough to really ignite the medical community around it. The only thing that I would say, in being in lubricants for so long, is that parabens are considered the safest, the most tested preservative. And that does not mean that it's ideal for you, because we are all very different. This idea that your sensitivity or what you don't need in a bottle to be boiled down to one or two things, it's kind of silly in essence, because there's so much more going on. But that's why when we look at our products, we started going down the primary medical device route of what was safe, what was tested, what was available. And then we started developing off of that. So whereas H2O utilizes parabens as the preservative, we have natural salt-based preservatives like sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate. We do chlorophenicin in our Renew moisturizer. We have a lot of different stuff. Like I said, with our USDA organic water-based, we don't even have a preservative in it. It's literally chamomile, organic chamomile, that is maintaining a safe and clean product. So there's so much that you can choose from. I never want people to get lost in the weeds of that conversation, because a lot of it put some power to that trial and error. I highly recommend walking the path on your journey to sort of your sexual peak, be it. You will be able to tell yourself your own truths. You will be able to know what feels good to you. And everything that we do is safety tested. So everything that we do has been through penile and vaginal sensitivity. Everything that we do has been looked at under a microscope, has been defined and redefined over the years. I mean, we've been doing it for quite a long time. We're one of the legacy manufacturers within the adult industry space, and many other like FDM and other spaces that we might have.
Okay.
I'm wondering how you go about finding people that are going to test it for you as a.
We've had consumer panels. We've had many consumer panels. We'll have somebody that will basically set it up. It's usually a very small panel, because we're really looking for quality information, not just like 1,000 people to check this one box.
Yeah.
We really want to know how people are using it. When we got involved in tubes for the first time, we really wanted to know that this tube was going to be easy to use, because we'd always been in sort of a bullet style pop top system. So everything that we do, we are gathering information, and we work with a lot of really awesome clinical specialists and things like that can really work a group, make sure it's a safe space, and make sure everybody has their chance to talk. And we do this often when we're either developing something new, when we have something that's like a new spinoff for a different market. These are all things that we're looking at.
Okay, so I think we're heading out of time, but one thing I want to address quickly is anal sex. Tushy time, butt stuff.
Yeah,
Tell us
your
what you-
anus does not produce any lubrication. So if I can tell you anything about safe anal sex, it does not often, for some people, require a lot of lube, but if you really commit to adding a lot of lubricant to that experience, it will be best for both parties. You can use a water-based, you can use a hybrid. A lot of people stick to a silicone-based product because it's a very simple product and it's a very long lasting product. So it really depends on your play style if you're using toys. But one thing that I will say, got to stretch before you run. If you want to have a really good time, think about vaginal dilators. They make the same thing for anal players, where you have small plugs, small insertables, and this is basically to help the body naturally stretch. There are quite a few different sphincters that you come in contact with during anal sex, and all of those muscle groups need to open, stretch, and be prepared for anal penetration. So lots of lube, lots of prep and pre-play. And if you're at all self-conscious about the experience, one of the biggest things that can help get you out of your head is consider maybe a little cleansing system, an enema, something that just pushes a little bit of water up and passes it out. It can be a big
I will tell people, for beginners, more stuff might come down then. I don't think they need to do enemas until they're more serious. If you're at the beginning, you're not going to be throwing things like or pushing things far up. So if you just maybe use your finger to clean or, insert and come out, use some soap and water. That's my thought. But I know some people just like,
for me,
again, there are differences.
The experience has always been the biggest reason for people to do this, from my perspective, working in retail and working with a lot of beginners, is that they need to put their brain on pause. They need to be able to not overthink the process. And so where you're going to have a difference of opinion here, for me, it's really been to relax and put the mind at ease. Yeah. And with a little bit of a light, warm water solution, you can have a nice relaxation to it.
Yeah. And make sure that you use a really good, high quality lube, because again, nobody's but self lubricates. And so I suggest a silicone, because I say you want things to go in and come out really smoothly. And that is true for butt plugs, for anything, not just for butt sex traditional. So. All right. Well, thank you. You guys have any other questions? Y'all have been so quiet, Tina and Aaron.
I mean, there's still so much more we could get into, but I think we're going to have to do it some other time, because
we can do it anytime. I'm happy to connect with you guys anytime you want to. The biggest thing that I would just say is, if you're a consumer out there and you're really kind of cautious about your lubricant decision, just find a quality manufacturer behind it. Because, for instance, like our H2O, we don't just use any glycerin. We use a USP grade glycerin. This is United States Pharmacopoeia grade glycerin. It's medical grade. It's held to a standard of more than 99.6% purity. So there are a lot of amazing manufacturers out there, and you don't need to get lost in the weeds or the minutia of it. You just want to find somebody that's going to back your purchasing decision, that's got a good grip on manufacturing, makes a lot of different types of products. And I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode, just because I've got, of course, System Joe's website pulled up, and one tab that you can look at, of course, is all the flavored lubricants. Like we could do a whole hour itself on just all the flavors that you guys have. And
our cocktail version is brand new to the market.
Yeah, I saw those
on the beach. It's so killer good.
Like that was something that, and what made us ended up, what I brought this to you guys is, my wife and I were at the adult store that's near our house, and we saw the ones that the gelato series, which has the creme brulee, the mint chocolate chip, and then the tiramisu. And tiramisu is my wife's favorite dessert of all time. I mean, that was our wedding.
And you
cake.
can't get that in a flavored lubricant product. I've never seen tiramisu
so
before.
I brought it to them, and I was like, hey, we should talk about this, and we should talk about different flavored lubes, because there are companies out there that I know, and that I don't know, but I have talked to plenty of people about, and they've gone, oh yeah, that's flavored, but you should not be putting that in your mouth, because they're not putting stuff in there that is actually good for it can ruin your digestive system. And so then we started looking at it, and I started looking at every flavor that you guys make, and I was like, no, that's actually, when you say flavored, it is edible flavored lube that you can, use for oral sex or, any other type of play. But just flavor after flavor, like, I just want to buy every single one of them now and try, like, 'cause like butterscotch, I would put that on ice cream.
Butterscotch is pretty good. And one of the things that I will just say about our flavors, a lot of people understand that flavorings are very temperamental. McDonald's, for instance, they're known for their soft drink quality. And the reason is that they're shipping those sodas and the syrups in a double-walled, refrigerated stainless steel compartment, and it seals in that freshness. Freshness is everything. And for us, the biggest thing that really benefits us to the North American market is that we're manufactured out of California. So we have really nice quality standards there, but we also have a lot of providers and suppliers that are just a stone's throw from our manufacturing facilities. So when we get flavored liquids, we don't have to ship them from overseas. They don't spend any time on a boat. They barely have a half an hour trip time, and it's straight to the manufacturing facility. It's a really nice hidden level of quality control that I think is always an interesting concept for consumers to think about.
Yeah, there's a big difference. So I love it. And I was rubbing the lavender and Tahitian vanilla massage oil all over my arms. So lots and lots of really
And that
great
one actually
options. So-
works with a soybean oil primarily, which is a very interesting. It actually helps a lot with skin elasticity. So I would say that if you compare this to some of the other massage oils on the market, a lot of them won't include vitamin E or some of the other additions that we have in our moisturizers and massagers. And we also use an essential oil fragrance blend. So it is really crisp, really clean, long lasting, and it can be really great for certain sensitivities, because when you're talking about some of the synthetic fragrances and stuff, it can be a difficult allergen for some more sensitive skin types.
All right. Well, terrific. Well, thank you. This has been wonderful. Ryan, we're going to do another episode with you. We're going to talk more about different arousal scents and vibrators and all sorts of different products that are involved in the sexy world. So thank you for joining us, Ryan McCrobie from System Joe.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, I am Beth Darling, your sexy genius from sexyedschool.com. Please go there, go check out the classes and learn to love. Oral and All is available now for enrollment for women. It's an online course for 5 weeks. Everything, the relationship 101 and all the relationship tools you need to make your marriage as wonderful as your wedding. Thank you for joining us for Come With Us podcast. Big hugs and love, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Come With Us podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Come With Us Podcast and send in your questions, comments, and confessions to comewithusconfessions@gmail.com. Until next time, keep it fun, flirty, and naughty.